don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD, Annabelle, and Melissa.
Hi guys, welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD, and today I have my wonderful co-host, Melissa. Melissa,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you.
I'm so glad to see you today. We have a pretty amazing show today, and I'm sure it's just what some of you need. And it's definitely going to be something that I need. I can feel it right now. We have Babita Spinelli, of the CEO of the Spinelli Group. She also operates Opening the Doors Psychotherapy, and she's a real estate investor, which we're going to get into a little bit of that mindset and motivation for salespeople. I think we'll probably touch on that a little bit today, which is huge in our industry. Babita, we're so happy. I know that this is a long time coming. I think we've rearranged like 4 different times. There was COVID rearrangements and new appointments and all kinds of stuff, but we're super happy to have you here. Thank you for bearing with us in that challenging calendar.
Oh, no, I'm so excited to be here. And actually, it's a great way to segue into our dialogue because changes happen, right? Changes happen, reschedules. So how do we end up like just recognizing that we could still pivot?
Yeah.
And we did. Here we are.
Wow, that's great. And in real estate and in life, you have to pivot on a constant basis to stay ahead of the next guy or to keep from going down a bad path. Babita, I'm sure that there's a lot of our audience that might not know who you are. Can you kind of give us a rundown of who you are, what you do, where you're at, and then we'll just kind of go from there on the conversation.
Sure. So I have a couple of companies. I am a psychotherapist as well as a coach and a mental health consultant. I do a lot of like motivational coaching for organizations. I do a lot of mental health consulting, and I also have my practice, which is my traditional psychotherapy practice. Everything is global. I was a former lawyer, so I was in corporate America for many years, and then ended up on Wall Street and was an executive on Wall Street. And I realized that, speaking of pivots, that I really wanted to do something different. I didn't really feel very fulfilled. I was successful, but I didn't feel personally and passionately fulfilled. And so I ended up going back to school and basically do what I do now for several years. And during that process, I realized I can do this, which is the companies that you mentioned that I sort of own and run, but I can also do some investing. And I was always really interested in real estate, and I felt like the world is sort of my oyster, but it took a while, to kind of get there. And so that's sort of a little nutshell about me.
Very nice. I like that. I like how you said that about being not fulfilled, being successful, but not being fulfilled.
Yes. I think that's being fulfilled is a huge, important part. Being successful is important. And I think it's really awesome that you found a way to do both and that you recognize that one wasn't enough for you. And I think that's huge, being self-aware and making decisions based off of what's good for not just you and your family, but your mental psyche, I think is huge.
So huge. And I do think that it is a mindset thing also, because naturally there's a lot of fears and understandable fears. There's a lot of things we've also carried from our histories, our own struggles. The personal does meet the professional or some of those more career-oriented goals or entrepreneurial goals. So I do think that that is part of that process and that journey. And I for me, I can even say personally worked very hard on that, which is why I feel like I like to do what I do and impart that to others, because I've sort of like been there in terms of, that shifting that mindset and what it takes to enter into another space, especially that entrepreneurial space.
Yeah.
Well, I think what would be really interesting to our audience is if you could kind of take us down the path of how you help somebody find out, I guess maybe like what mindset problems they have, and then identifying those, and then maybe some of the steps that you're using to either, I don't know if fix the mindset is the right way to say it, but there's a good mindset and there's bad mindsets. And oftentimes as entrepreneur and real estate investors, we find ourselves in the bad mindset, and we need to bring it over because we're our most successful selves when we have that positive mindset going for us.
Beautiful question. How much time do you have? There's so much to this, but I'll give a little nutshell that I kind of see as a little bit of my framework. And I think this is where my psychoanalytic, psychotherapy hat comes in, as well as the coaching and like the practical legal side. So the first thing that I like to do is say, and someone might say, why do you need to know this? Or, is what is your history? And the reason why I think that is so powerful, and oftentimes people don't dive into that, is our histories do influence and shape where we land, and they add to our view of the world, the way we frame things, our relationship to others, and maybe even, some of our beliefs. So for example, let's get to something basic, and I'll give that, rich dad, poor dad example, like he spoke about, right? His father and what his father modeled for him, right? So what I like to do is say, let's look at our history. Tell me about your family. Tell me about the relationship to, like, what did your parents model? How did you grow up? What was their mindset? What was their relationship to money? So when we first identify all these things that come up in history, we can then start to say, okay, so where do you land on that? And what we can do is sort of do a little bit of a mapping or an assessment. Like, for example, if this person came from a history where there might have been some deprivation or scarcity, right? Maybe the parents were Holocaust survivors or things like that. What were they taught? This is now the person that's coming to me saying, help, I need help. I want to do this. I'm going to be an investor. I want to, challenge myself, but I feel stuck. So I think those things are really telling around it, that history part. Were there traumas? Were there things where we might have learned, stay in your lane, don't take any risks, stay safe, you're not good enough. Maybe the person was bullied, right? So this is what this person is coming to me with. And I think that that's important. And a lot of people discount that because they don't want to go down that road.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I say,
that's all terrifying.
Right? It's terrifying. Like, who wants to talk about their traumas and their families? Nobody does. But I always say we look back to look forward. We look back at rupture so we can repair it, because you know what? This is going to empower you to leave that behind, to take it and learn from it. So mindset tip one, when you get the histories, is we map it out, and then we say, we need to flip the switch. If it's not good enough, if it's failure, if it's scarcity. Then we go into, when we know that, what are the fears that are coming up that we've now gleaned from some of these things in history? And what I like to do is start to say, let's face our fears one step at a time. So let's identify them, and then let's try and flip the switch. Let's say the actual thing you're worried about happened, right? Well, how would you meet that? Is this really going to happen, or is it just catastrophic thinking, right? Do you really think that you're going to lose all this money by doing it? Well, let's say you did. What would that mean? How would we pivot? What would you do with it? So I like to do a whole thing like facing fears. And I think that's really important. Let's say they have all these fears of failure. Then I really like to go into that self-limiting belief and say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to imagine your future self. Let's start to think about who you want to be, what you want to become, and just manifest all of these positive qualities. And we're literally going to paint this story, because we're going to replace some of these negative beliefs and imagine that very positive, healthy person doing what you want to do. So I kind of go into that. And then we go into abundance mindset, which is really so powerful. And you actually just mentioned it, like the fixed mindset versus the abundant mindset. So what I really like to do is start to define, what does abundant mindset mean? What is a growth mindset? Because a lot of people don't really know what it is, and they think they're in a growth mindset, but they're not. So I call growth mindset, you are always learning, even if things are messy. I think of investing sometimes as chutes and ladders. We have our ups, we have our downs, we take our risks, right? But if we're always thinking about the result, which is still important, we aren't learning from our process. So I like to say that abundance mindset is about the growth. It's about embracing some of the things, the ups and the downs, but doing a reflection of learning from it and then rebuilding on that, claim the stuff that worked, let go of the stuff that didn't, and move on. Move on. This is about taking a chance. And then those are just some of the things. And then I would say, last but not least, is do that reflective audit. So I say, once we're sort of in it, let's look at what you learned from it and what's worked and not worked, and not to be afraid of it. A lot of people don't want to do that. I know I myself, I bought like a piece of land, didn't make anything out of it. I was like, oh, I can't even believe this. Now I'm selling it. And I really didn't make anything. And I just said, well, what did I learn about this? Well, maybe I don't want to buy land in my future, or maybe I should have done more research around the land I was buying, or maybe I should have sort of realized I should have held it. I should have held it. Maybe I was feeling anxious, right? So I like to do that reflective audit. And when I'm in the journey with my clients and they start to like plunge into spaces, I like to do that audit and then motivate them and inspire them to say, well, let's look at like the fact that you made that decision. What was good about it? What do we learn from it? And take it from there. So I'm just going to pause there because there's still so much more, but I'll pause there to like make room for you guys to speak.
That audit is huge. We try to do that every day, you know, no matter what the cost of that, because that's so important. But what I really liked what you said when you talked about our history and that we don't realize how important that is. When you said about being taught to stay safe, stay in our lane, that's huge, as if you're trying to be an investor to ever get over that, because that has been in, you know, it's just part of you because that's what you learn. And so how can I put that risk out there? How can I put that offer out there? Because that's not safe. And so it scares me. And so I don't make any offer. So that's the whole analysis paralysis part, right? So I love that. Yes. I never thought about how much that affected us, JD. In that lane, right?
Stay in your lane. That's what you're supposed to do. And I don't like talking about anything when it comes to history. So maybe personally, that's something that we need to, the path we need to go. I'd rather not. So we'll save that for another go. But I think it's definitely something we need to look at, and everybody, not just me or you or the guy down the street, but everybody could benefit from objectively looking at their environment and the environment they grew up in.
Even the people that we're trying to purchase the properties from, what is their history? Have they been taken advantage of? You know, they have a history they're bringing to the table as well that we have to overcome to be able to close that deal, right?
I love that you said that, Melissa, because that is absolutely right. So oftentimes, let's say someone wants to like do a laser session with me and they're like, I really feel stuck. I'm trying to get this property. I feel like this person, there's a lot of what I call resistance. So then I'll say, okay, let's look at this. What do you think is their story? Tell me about what you know about them. All right, so maybe they're coming from this place. So now let's step into their shoes and lean in with a bit of empathy, saying, what might they be thinking? And now let's role play it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is really, really a great way to do it. And I think I've heard other either sales trainers or other mentors that are in our environment refer to that as tactical empathy. And knowing when to use it is definitely key.
So true. And then our own self-empathy, our own self-compassion, because what I think sort of happens is if, let's say something happens and someone identifies it as a failure, which I like to say, let's reframe that, right? But if you do, then you're sitting there bringing that mindset in and you're afraid to take the next step.
Right.
So we have to also have empathy towards ourselves and self-compassion and say, okay, this didn't work out, but I did it. I really did it. I actually took that step. And I think that's really important to show ourselves self-compassion. I think Kristen Neff, she's great around self-compassion. And I often will say to individuals, if this feels like a gap, read this or do this. Like, I think it goes back to always learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And trying to master and sort of use that muscle too, to help you kind of move from feeling so despondent if something doesn't work out, and realizing that you're always learning and it's a muscle you can keep using, and then capitalizing on that.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think that's great. Babita, if we were, if because most of our audience is a newer to the real estate game, and they're not super successful yet, but they're definitely doing some deals, and that's who we like to focus on. And I know that a lot of them are in the battle of overcoming these limiting beliefs and coming this fixed mindset. Where do you think that somebody like that should start out? Is it just about waking up early, reading a motivational poster and going for a run, or are there some real tactical level things that somebody can do on their own to help them with mindset and motivation?
Yeah, great question. I do think each person is unique in terms of what makes them tick, but I feel it's stepping back and sort of seeing it more as a mastery, and realizing it's almost like working out. This is a day-to-day thing.
Right.
So I would start with thinking very much about, how do I want to see my life? What am I like working towards? Like, is it flexibility? Is it, what excites me? Am I looking to have, more wealth? What does that look like? And then re-engineering backwards in terms of motivation. So saying, okay, that is something that I strive for. So what does my day-to-day look like for me to want to be able to get there? What makes me feel good about myself, spiritually, intellectually, physically, the people I hang out with? And each person is unique in that way. So I call that your life container. Map that and create that and follow that every day. If your life container, let's say in terms of like mindfulness, and you like that and you connect with it, I'd say start off with a meditation. Start off with something that really is about, I love Joe Dispenza, or Tony Robbins, something that is really empowering. Start there. Then, okay, physical stuff. You feel good when you work out, which I often say working out is a really good thing. The exercise that you like, that you connect with, whether it's out in nature, swimming. All right, master that. Put that there. You do that every day where you can. Okay, what's the next thing? Is it a mantra? Is there a particular quote, a book you resonate with? Do you want to put a positive list of like all of your like positive qualities that you want to look at? Okay, bring it in, right? That's the next thing. So I often say, master those and create your day and follow through. You are unique, but also, who are you surrounding yourself by? So for example, sometimes a client who's new in this will say, I'm doing it all, and I still don't know why I feel so negative. Beta, I've caught the negative, like self-beliefs. I've replaced it with the positive. I'm mastering everything. I feel good. And I'm like, what else is going on? Do you have this really like negative friend? Or I joined this group and there's so many fears and I feel like I'm stuck in it every time I listen to them. Or I speak to my mother every day who's kind of like, don't do this. Who are you surrounding yourself by or with?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you need to switch that up and set some really firm boundaries around that. So I think that's really important too. So hopefully I answered your question, JD. For anyone that's new out there, is look at those things, create that container for yourself, follow it through every day. This has to be the fabric of your life. This isn't just a one-off.
Yeah.
Right. It's not something you can go to a conference for a weekend and then not put anything into place and expect to have a good mindset. One of the things that
Exactly.
you said that I think is super important is who you're surrounding yourself with. And I heard a quote earlier that said that environment beats willpower every time. So when you surround yourself with people that are negative, it doesn't matter how much positive you're practicing on your own, it'll seep into your life.
That is so true, even when you're trying. And over time, I think when someone's new, they absorb that more. Over time, I really think this is important. And a lot of times this isn't set in mindset is boundaries. Define your boundaries. Where do you begin and end? Where does someone else begin and end? Early on, we absorb a lot of other individuals' feelings, their issues, how they see things. Over time, we start to realize we have to set a boundary. So one, either you stop surrounding yourself with those people, but then if it's someone like a family member that you can't get away from, you just have to set a boundary to give it a finite amount of time and start to put what I call the bubble around you. Like start to realize gray rock, like I call that gray rock, like try not to absorb it and just say, okay, that's their stuff. I'm going to give it 2 minutes and then I'm turning it off. Today's not the day. Or I have a deal on the table and I'm trying to be confident. I'm not talking to that family member today.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good.
I do. I think it's probably harder for moms than it is for kids. I mean, it's definitely, going to be way easier for me to turn off my phone and not talk to anybody than it would be for Melissa to turn off her phone and not talk to anybody. But I do see great value in that. Limiting exposure to negative beliefs and negative, it's like almost like an energy drain, I think is the way I like to refer to them.
Yes, it really is like an energy drain. So I want to build on that. It's like when we have to charge our phone and it's dying. I think something else around this whole space with investing is it can be so mentally depleting and draining sometimes.
Yes.
It's okay to take a break and say, I need to take care of myself. Like I need to recharge.
Right.
It's so hard to do, Babita, just because, when you're self-employed, as you know, I mean, we're all we got. It's like we're not getting a paycheck every other Friday from somebody when we give 60% at work. You know what I mean? So
I agree.
It's great to say that, but man, it's really hard to implement that in your life.
We are definitely not masters of that challenge yet, for sure.
And the majority of people aren't. I think it comes down to this. It's almost like check in on whether you're at burnout, right? Because everyone, I think you're a high performer, you want to pay bills, it's also, the money aspect, those are some practical realities. So I would say this to that, to say, maybe it's just checking your depletion level. So if like on Wednesday or Thursday, you're depleted and you're at a 10 and one is least depleted, you're already at a 10, you're not going to be good at that next day with the way you want to show up. To just say, all right, I do need to turn it off at 5 today. Tomorrow is another day.
That's when we have Spirit Sunday, right, Melissa?
That's right. That's
what's that? What's Spirit Sunday?
Where we have spirits.
Yeah.
Take it to the Monday.
Yes,
It's just
exactly.
a rough week and we want to regroup for Monday.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, you're like that. That's a nice motivator. So that's the other thing. I love the whole concept of reward.
Yeah.
Like cheer yourself on and reward what I call your munchkin moments. Reward those small, delicious little bites, and say, God, like that was great. Or I did that. And okay, maybe this didn't work out, but what a great meeting. Okay, on to the next. But reward yourself. Give yourself something to cheer yourself on.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, that is really good. Babita, I know that you have a busy schedule ahead and that there's some things that I think would benefit our audience if you shared with them, where they can find you and what kind of services you provide and that kind of stuff. And maybe who the ideal person that you're looking for to serve as, I guess a mindset coach and I'm sure there's people in our audience that could benefit from your services. Can you share with us a little bit about that before we get off of here?
Sure, absolutely. So I guess the first is often if for individuals that are in sales and building sales, et cetera, I do a lot of motivational training in terms of sales. So I've done that, for real estate firms and companies as well as banks, not-for-profits, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that. The second one, it does end up being around masterminds and mindset work.
Mm-hmm.
And I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. I work with a lot of individuals that I call like high performers and high achievers, very driven, but also feel very stuck, but also small business owners, beginners, because I truly believe transformation happens when we start, right, with our mindset.
Right.
So those are some of those other clients that I work with. And I also just do a lot of like laser consulting. So oftentimes someone might say, I have this coming up. I feel like I'm stuck. Can we have a one-on-one? I need an hour with you.
Yeah.
And we'll just hone in on what it is. They will describe what it is, and I'll say, let's do this, do this, do this. So that they go out with something and then tools that they can use to move forward. So those are just some of the clients that I work with, but people can find me and like all of my services on BabitaSpinelliGroup.com. That really has a lot of that. And then there's the traditional psychotherapy practice, which is Opening the Doors Psychotherapy, which sometimes is helpful for individuals to say, maybe there's some deeper therapeutic work that I need to do that I haven't processed that's keeping me from actually leading the life that I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the number one reason is that somebody wouldn't want to go or feels uncomfortable going to the psychotherapy type stuff? And how can you alleviate that fear for them?
Shame and judgment. Goes back to the stigma, right? Like
Right.
Really is that feeling of shame that maybe has come up to look at things, and being vulnerable is really hard. Like Brene Brown says, like being vulnerable is the hardest thing, and we feel so much shame to do it. A lot of fears of what's going to come up, so they want to avoid it and not look at it. And what might other people think? Are they going to be judged by the therapist? Are they going to be judged by others?
Right.
I want to say this. I want to say personally, I want to say therapy changed my life. I'm here because many, many years ago, back in my 30s, when I felt stuck and I wasn't sure what to do, I saw a therapist and then a coach. And I think part of it is I say this to normalize it and to say it's amazing what it can do. And if it's not therapy, do the coaching, do the mindset shift. That's okay too. But I do want to normalize the therapy part as well, if someone feels like uncomfortable. And also to say it's okay to like find the right person. Sometimes that fear and that shame is because they're worried about what the person is going to be like. So take your time, do a little research, and find someone that you feel like you can connect with, that you feel like you can go in with and just have that conversation without feeling judged.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really valid points. And I know most macho entrepreneurial type people don't want to open up those doors, but I think we all know that nothing ever gets better if you don't look at it and don't address it head on.
It is so true. And I can really say I have seen so much success. And again, there's so many things maybe you're successful in, but a beginner in, let's say, real estate investing or something else that you're diving into, I can say with full confidence, there is so much transformation and success when people do that kind of work. And if you invest in that and say, you know what, maybe it is a bit of a financial investment. Maybe there is something that I'm concerned about. Oh, if I spend money on this, and how am I going to invest somewhere else, right? In the mindset work and things like that. But you'll go a long ways, because eventually all of that investment in what you do is going to help to get you to where you need to go.
Right. I think that's great. And I think that's probably a pretty good place to leave off, Babita, if they're trying to get a hold of you or want to check out either your real estate or your other services, your coaching or the psychotherapy, where can people go to find out more about you or check out your services?
Sure. They can Google my name. Actually, it all comes up now, right? Everything. But BabitaSpinelliGroup.com is a great way. I am on social media. So Babita Spinelli, if they go on Instagram, they'll find me there and can follow me. I like to post a lot of, valuable resources. And I will be starting maybe a new mastermind group if anyone is interested. And I actually do like the old-fashioned way. I like people to pick up the phone. I don't know about you guys, but I think there is something about having those conversations. Doesn't this feel different when we actually just talk to somebody?
Yes.
Yes.
We talk about this all the time. Yes, agree.
Right? So I have my phone number everywhere. 347-884-7316.
Perfect.
There you have it.
Next thing you know, 2,500 phone calls.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah, you'll never get away with it. All right, Babita. Well, I think you've brought a lot of value, and I think that there's some uncomfortable truths that everybody has to learn. And I think looking at motivation mindset through your lens is going to be beneficial to a lot of our audience. So we really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It's been great.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, really
really
enjoyed it. And we'll make sure to put all those links and everything in the show notes. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Wonderful. Great to be here. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, check out our website, therealestatejam.com. Or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Real Estate Jam. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at therealestatejam@gmail.com. See you next episode.